Welcome back to Why We Nurse. I'm your host, Serena. If you've been listening for a while, you might have noticed I was gone for a bit. And today I want to acknowledge that absence, not with excuses, but with some honesty. I stepped away from the podcast because of a family health issue, one that required my full attention, my presence, and my heart. Sometimes life asks us to pause, even when we love the work that we're doing. And this season reminded me that being a nurse doesn't protect us from becoming family members navigating illness, uncertainty, and grief. Today's episode is about coming back. It's about what happens when nursing becomes deeply personal. And it's about sharing what I've learned so that others don't feel alone. As nurses, we're trained to be calm in crisis. We know the terminology, we understand disease processes, but when it comes to the patient that is someone that you love, everything shifts. You're no longer just a nurse, you're a daughter, a partner, a family member. You're listening differently, you're hoping differently, and you're grieving in real time. This experience reminded me that nursing doesn't end at the bedside. It follows us home, it lives in our hearts. And it also reminded me how important it is to talk openly about serious illness, especially the ones we don't hear about as often. One of the reasons I wanted to dedicate this episode to esophageal cancer is because it is often diagnosed late, and many people don't know the warning signs. Esophageal cancer affects the tube that carries food from the mouth to the stomach. It can be aggressive, and early symptoms are often subtle or mistaken for something else. Some common symptoms include difficulty swallowing, pain or discomfort when eating, chronic heartburn or reflux, unexplained weight loss, chest discomfort, and persistent coughing or hoarseness. Risk factors for esophageal cancer can include chronic GERD or acid reflux, smoking or heavy tobacco use, heavy alcohol consumption, obesity, Barrett's esophagus. What's important to say here is this: having risk factors does not mean someone will develop cancer, but awareness does matter. Early conversations matter, and listening to your body matters. Prevention doesn't always mean elimination, but it does mean empowerment. So, managing chronic reflux, avoiding tobacco, moderating alcohol, maintaining a healthy weight, and seeking evaluation for persistent symptoms can make a difference. As nurses, we often encourage patients to advocate for themselves. And this experience reminded me that we have to do the same for ourselves and our families. If something feels off, don't minimize it. If symptoms persist, ask questions. If your gut says something isn't right, trust that instinct. Education doesn't remove fear, but it gives us language, agency, and choice. Now I want to talk a little bit about hospice care, what it is and why it matters. Because it is often one of the most misunderstood, but also one of the most compassionate forms of care that we have. Hospice is not about giving up. It is not abandoning care. Hospice is shifting that focus from the cure to comfort, from prolonging life at all of the costs to preserve the dignity and peace and comfort and quality of life. The hospice team provides so much support. They provide pain and symptom management, emotional and spiritual care. They provide education and guidance for families, support during the dying process, and they even grieve with us after death. As a nurse, I've always respected hospice, but as a family member, I understand it on a deeper level. Hospice creates a space for honesty, for comfort, for love, and for those goodbyes. Hospice doesn't just care for the patient, though. It holds the family too. It teaches families what to expect. It reassures them that what they're seeing is normal, and it reminds them that they're not alone. In moments where everything feels uncertain, hospice provides steadiness, and that matters more than we often realize. Our hospice nurse was able to share this pamphlet with us that really helped our family understand that what we were doing was not cruel. We were not being um, mean to our family member. We were not abusing our family member. And it really gave us a little bit of peace as we saw those changes that occur um, as we get closer to that. In season 1 of Why We Nurse, hospice nurse Kristen shared a little bit of her story with us. And I would like to play a little bit of that here for you guys.
Wow, and I guess I didn't even realize that there's so many, multidisciplinary team members within that hospice team caring for that hospice patient. That's really good to hear that you guys have all of that extra support and that it's not just you trying to take on all of those roles.
Yeah, it's very important. We have volunteers. Hospice started out originally as volunteers. So Medicare, I think it's Medicare, yeah. So it requires it to be like a certain percentage of the staff be volunteers because there's like a history behind it and also because uh, like it's going back to dying with dignity and not dying alone. You know, there is a loneliness epidemic, especially in the elderly. So we have people available who will just go sit and talk and like hang out with the elderly patients, or not even the older patients, but anybody who needs, you know, that ear or that company that companionship that, you know, is becoming unfortunately more and more common, especially in our aging population.
Are you able to share a story or moment that deeply impacted you in your role?
So you gave me this question like last week, and I've been sitting on it because in hospice there's so many stories. Literally, so right now I'm just working on the weekend. My shift starts at 5 p.m. on Friday and stops 8 a.m. Monday. Some weekends I don't get more than 6 hours of sleep the whole weekend. And every single weekend since I started in May, I've had an experience that has impacted me. If I were to say, like, if one story was to really stick out to me, uh, I'm going to go back to when I was originally starting hospice, my first round, my second round back into hospice. I got out of it and I was saying the whole time, I'm probably going to go back at some point. Something is getting closer to retirement. Yet here I am. I actually, in hospice, Hawaii, I did it for 4 years. I did pediatric hospice care. And every, like, I still know all the kids that I took care of by name. And I also still know their faces. There was one family in particular that really just impacted me and changed me so much as a person. So being a hospice nurse at 25 years old, 24, definitely it changes the way you perceive your day-to-day life. Like I'm not gonna freak out because a dish is what my dishes aren't done overnight. Because I know every day I go to work, I'm reminded you never know. You never know when someone close to you is gonna get that cancer, that terminal cancer diagnosis. You never know, you know, when your grandparents who have been perfectly healthy suddenly just hit that edge, you know. Seeing that be true in the pediatric population really, really affected me. You know, I say, yeah, I didn't see that at hospital. I always get the same response. It's like, oh, God, how could you do that? I don't think I could do it now. I am a mom, but that was right for that time in my life.
Coming back to this podcast after this experience feels so different. I carry more tenderness, more awareness, and more respect for the quiet strength that families show every day. If you're listening and walking through illness, your own or someone that you love, please know this. You don't have to do it alone. You're allowed to ask for help, and choosing comfort, dignity, and support is not failure, it's love. I want to thank you for giving me the space to step away and the grace to come back. This is Why We Nurse. Follow at Why We Nurse on Instagram and Facebook for continued conversations that matter. Until next time, hold your loved ones close, care for your family, and remember why you must.